Hello treasured visitors, I'm Rebecca from www.rebeccastreasures.com and I'm very excited to be welcoming you today to my very first ever video crochet along. Now for this video crochet along, we are going to be crocheting some pretty awesome giraffes, if I do say so myself. This little guy is Otis. He is my original giraffe. I crocheted him last summer. My brother named him, and I thought Otis was a very cool, unique name, so it kind of stuck. So this is my little Otis. He's my original, and he stands at roughly 7 inches tall, and or 18 centimeters, and was crocheted with cotton thread size 10. So he's a really cute, fits in your hand, or perfect for a little tyke-sized giraffe. And then here we have Otis variation number 2. Since we already have little Otis, I think we should give her a new name, don't you? Since we're crocheting this in April, how about we name her April, and she can be Otis's little mommy. I don't know if you've heard also, there's this really cool live stream of April the giraffe in one of these animal parks. I don't know if she's given birth yet, but she will be soon if she hasn't already. And wouldn't it be fun if she had a boy and then they called him Otis? I think so. Anyways, as you can see, she is about twice as tall, twice as wide as little Otis over here, and she's actually the one you're going to be seeing as we work these crochet tutorials. And you'll notice that little Otis over here is made out of 2 colors, and she has 3. And there's a very good reason for this, which I'll get to in just a second. I just wanted to say this April was crocheted with me tripling up on my thread because for whatever reason you can't get thicker yarn weights here. So I just tripled it up so you'll be able to see the stitches better, and of course I wanted to see what she would look like bigger, and obviously she is adorable. So now we're going to talk about how we're going to crochet this giraffe. And now this giraffe is going to be crocheted in this really cool, very fun technique called the join as you go method. Now for this method, what we are going to be doing is that instead of sewing all of the pieces after we crochet them all, we're going to crochet the pieces as we crochet and incorporate them into the bigger pieces so that you are left with minimal sewing. How awesome is that, right? So really the only sewing that will ever have to take place for this giraffe, if you're doing the join as you go method, is when we sew the body or the top of the neck to the bottom of the head. That's the only time you'll have to sew. And of course to make the facial features, but apart from that, that's the only time. And so so we're going to come to why April has 3 colors instead of 2 like our original Otis over here. Now she has 3 colors because we've got the green as the alternate color here, and then we've got 2 main colors. Now the reason we have 2 main colors is that when we get to crocheting the body, we're going to be attaching all of these limbs and spots as we go, and I want you to really be able to see and distinguish which stitches belong to the body and which ones belong to the legs, for instance. And so that's why she's 3 colors, but you can go ahead and use 2 just like original Otis over here, or if you want to, you can even do the same like April and have a unique and colorful giraffe. It's totally up to you, but we'll get to the supply bit in just a moment. But basically that's how the join as you go is going to work, and it's really awesome because it'll help save time, because everyone wants to be able to save time, right? You want to crochet, you want to get it done, and you want to, well, sewing is really nice. If you have to sew all of these spots in addition to the limbs, it's going to take a lot of time. And maybe if you have a lack of patience like I do for sewing, then you're probably going to get discouraged. But the great thing about this join as you go is it's really easy to do, so even a beginner can do it. So let's go ahead and move on to what order we're going to crochet all of these pieces. Alright, so now we're ready to talk about the order of how we're going to crochet all of these pieces. Now, as you've just seen from how I've just explained the join as you go method, we need the smaller pieces done first. So that means in part 2, we're going to crochet all of the giraffe spots. There are 2 sizes, big size and small size. They'll be together in the same video. And we have to crochet all of those first. Now normally when you do an amigurumi project, you might save those for last so that they're not accumulating dust, but because we're going to be crocheting them right directly into all the other body pieces, we need to have them at the ready so that when it's time to attach them, it's there, you can grab it, and we can start crocheting. So that'll be part 2. Now the next part that we're going to work on are the limbs, all of the giraffe's limbs. So we've got the legs, the arms, and of course the tail. So here you can see she's got the same one. So all of those pieces are the pieces that are going to be crocheted in part 3. And of course as we crochet the legs and the arms, you see they've got some spots, so we'll be attaching those spots and incorporating them while we crochet the limbs. So once you have these limbs pieces done, then we can move on to part 4. Now part 4, we're going to be crocheting the body. It's going to be crocheted from the bottom up, and we're going to crochet up to the neck. And as we crochet the body, we're going to be incorporating all of the limbs that we crocheted in part 3. So you cannot move on to part 4 until you've got part 3 done, because you're going to need to have them ready to go and be attached as you go. Now, once you've got part 4 done, you're almost there, and we can move on to the top portion of the giraffe. But before we can actually crochet the head, we have to do the same thing where we crochet all of the facial features first. So that will be part 5. Part 5, we're going to cover the horns, the ears, the eyes, and the muzzle. So once you have all of these lovely facial features crocheted, then we can move on to part 6, which will be the crocheting of the head. And again, just like the body, we're going to incorporate all of these facial features as we crochet the head. Then once we've completed crocheting the head, all we have left to do is attach the head to the body, and voila, we've got a fun and exciting giraffe. Now, who's excited? Are you excited? I am very excited. I love this technique. It's the best, the best, the best, the best. Alright, so now that we know how we're going to crochet this giraffe, let's talk supplies. Now what's the #1 most important thing you're going to need for a crochet project? Well, you guessed it, yarn. So you're going to need yarn or thread, whichever yarn weight you would like to do, you can go and grab. You can grab thread size 10 like I did for little Otis over here, or you can go with a sport worsted to get April over here. So whatever yarn weight you'd like to work with, that's the yarn weight you can go for and use. As for fiber type, I prefer cotton, but you may like to use acrylic or other fiber types. Just make sure that whichever fiber type you do choose to use, it has a nice grip, because when we get to the stuffing portions, it'll stretch a little bit more, and you want to make sure that whichever yarn you're using prefers to stay closer together. And we'll make sure that there are fewer holes, which is very important for a stuffed animal. So that you'll need that. The amount that you'll need depends greatly on which yarn weight you will be using. For instance, for little Lotus over here, I used cotton thread size 10, as I said before. And for his main color, which you'll see is yellow, it's the main body color, the one that you see around. I used roughly about 100 meters or 110 yards to crochet him, and then for his accent or alternate color, I have here orange. I used roughly 80 meters or 88 yards, so that's roughly the amount to look for if you're going to work with thread. But if you're going to work with yarn to make a giraffe about the size of April, you're going to need double those amounts, because she's bigger, she's going to use a lot more. So that's roughly how much you'll need for yarn. Now the second most important thing that you'll need, of course, is the hook. So the hook size you use, again, will depend on which yarn weight that you'll be using. So if you're going to use cotton thread size 10, you're going to need a steel crochet hook. In my case, I ended up using a 1.5mm hook. But if you're going to work with sport or worsted like April over here, then you'll probably want a 3.75mm hook, or F if you're in the US. So the rule of thumb to go with is you want to use a hook size that produces tight stitches with whatever yarn weight what you're going to use. So make sure that when you do your gauge that you have really tight stitches, because once you start to stuff it, it will stretch. So you want to make sure that you get as close of a hole as you possibly can. So another tip would be to use at least a hook size that is one size smaller than recommended for your yarn type. So that covers your hook. Now you will also need a few additional tools to help you along the way. One of the most important ones is our stitch markers. So the giraffe is crocheted mostly in continuous rounds, which means you can easily lose track which is the first stitch and how many rounds you've done if you're not keeping track. Of course, if you're more adventurous, that's fine too. You don't have to use stitch markers if you don't want to, but I highly recommend using them. If you do not have stitch markers, there's an easy fix. You can use safety pins. Who doesn't have a safety pin, right? In fact, I use safety pins as my stitch markers. Those are all that I have, so I use safety pins. So you can use safety pins as a stitch marker, or whatever you have. You can even use a scrap piece of yarn if you like. So whatever works for you in that regard, go for it. You'll also need scissors, because you're going to have to cut your yarn at the end of each piece, and of course when you go to cut the tail hairs for Otis's tail, you're going to need scissors. You'll also need a ruler, because a ruler will be necessary in order to measure the length of the tails. And then of course you'll also want to have a tapestry or a yarn needle, because although there is very minimal sewing involved, there is a little bit of sewing involved, and you're going to need to be able to sew the head and the body together. And then of course there's this little embroidery detail on, here's April's face, and of course Otis has it too. Probably harder to see because of the close colors I did on him. But you're going to need a tapestry or needle for that, so make sure you have one on hand. The next tool that you'll want to have is, you may like to have a slightly larger hook, or something that you can use to press the filling down. You can use your thumbs for some bits, but you may need a little bit of a bigger hook, like say for this one, to really get it in there. So you may like to have another hook or tool on hand that will help you with the stuffing. Speaking of the stuffing, that is the final and most also important supply that you will need. You will need to have polyester fiber fill, or a filling of your choice. If you're familiar with amigurumi and you have a favorite stuffing, go ahead and use your favorite stuffing. You can grab polyester fiber fill in most craft stores. Our craft stores here do not have polyester fiber fill, so I had to find a creative solution, and my creative solution ended up being to buy a standard pillow for just a few bucks. And I opened it up, and voila, there was my polyester fiber fill. So if you don't have any in your supply store, then you can easily just buy a cheap pillow that has polyester fiber fill, and that will work easily too. And I just remembered that we forgot to go over the eyes. Now, if you're going to be crocheting the eyes, you'll need some scraps of black and an eye color. In my case, I use blue. You can use whichever colors you like. Or you can go ahead and use safety eyes. Now, if you're going to use safety eyes, the size you'll approximately need if you're going to work a little guy like Otis over here is, his eyes are about 1/2 inch or 1.5 centimeters in diameter. And then over here, April, who is much larger, her eyes are approximately double that, so about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters in diameter. So that's roughly the size of safety eyes you'll need if you would prefer to use safety eyes instead of crochet eyes. It's totally up to you. To sum it up, you need yarn in 2 colors, your main color and your alternate color. You need scraps of yarn for eyes or safety eyes, your choice. You need a hook so that you can crochet your project. You need safety pins or stitch markers, scissors, a ruler, and an additional tool to help with stuffing, and then of course the polyester fiber film. And that covers all the supplies that you'll need to go ahead and crochet your Otis. Alright, so now that we've covered the supplies, I'm going to bring these little guys back over here, let's talk about the crochet process of these giraffes. So I created these videos so that even a beginner, so if you're new to amigurumi, will be able to follow along very well. And of course, if you're more experienced, you can move along a little bit faster, but you may be new to the join as you go, but I go over those very well too, so you'll be able to really clearly see, and I explain things as we go, so you'll understand exactly what to do. But I do assume that you are familiar with basic crochet stitches and terminology, so I assume you know how to single crochet, which is a high must for amigurumi projects. And of course, additional things that I'm going to take my time to show you so that beginners catch on is the magic circle, and then we've got how to switch colors, because as you can see, the feet and the arms and the horns start with one color and then we switch to another color, so we'll be showing you how you can switch colors. And then we've got invisible decreases, so that way when you work your decreases, it's more clean and finite. You may already know how to do this, so that's great. But again, we'll go over those slowly, and then the next times I'll go a little bit faster, but you'll be able to catch on pretty quick. And then of course we have this other technique, which is called mirror crochet. It may have another name, but I know it is mirror crochet, and that's a technique that allows you to get the same look crocheting in rows as you do for rounds, because when you're going round and round, you get a distinctive right side or wrong side. And all of this we'll go over in addition to the join as you go method. So that covers that, and I hope you will have fun learning all of these techniques, whichever ones are new to you, whichever ones you already know. It'll be fun along the way, and we'll talk more, I'll discuss things more further as we crochet, because it'll be better just to show you the different things as we get to them, rather than trying to explain how they all work now. So that's going to be really fun. Now, there are some important notes that we should cover before we get started with the actual crocheting, and the one most important is that the wrong side of the work is what is going to be facing you as you crochet. That means that as you crochet, whatever you're looking at, that is the inside of the project, the wrong side of the project. Now, I know many of you probably are used to having it that the side faces you is the right side, so you'll probably think that I'm a little weird and wacko, and that's okay. Hey, that's me. I own it. But so you're going to need to remind yourself that the side facing you is the wrong side, the inside, okay? So another important thing is that unless you are planning to sew your pieces together, then you don't need a very long tail. You can have a short tail when you finish off your projects. The only time that you will need a very long tail is when you finish the body. You'll need to have a long tail that we can use to sew the head to the body. Other than that, that's all you really need to know. The rest we'll cover as we go. So yeah, this is getting really fun, isn't it? If you do have any questions, do not hesitate to ask me. I love to answer questions. I love to help people. I'm very open, very warm, very friendly. And of course, we will have various support groups, several events over on Facebook. This Crochet-A-Long is also being co-hosted by the Cal Crochet-A-Long group over on Facebook. They have an event for the Cal, and of course I have my own one on my own page. And of course we'll have, on my own group, I have support that you can go and see, and then of course there, I have groups on, and communities on Google Plus and on Ravelry, so you'll be able to get support from all of those different places. And of course you can also email me through my contact form on my website, and of course you can also shoot me questions on the blog. Speaking of which, you can find more information on the blog regarding this project. And of course, as we crochet, I will be releasing the various crochet instructions, and they will be available in several languages. All the languages can be found on the blog. I'll talk about them there. And then of course, once we finish the Crochet-A-Long, the full written pattern will be available on Ravelry to download. And yeah, so help us spread the word about this fun cowl. Are you excited? I'm so excited. So share it with your friends so that they can get in on the fun crocheting this fun giraffe too. And of course, you can as you work on your giraffes, you can hashtag Otis Giraffe Cowl, so we can all keep track of your project. And of course, you can share it in the various groups and events, and of course hashtag them there too. And if you're on Instagram or Twitter, you can tag my user Becca's Treasures. That's BECKA Treasures. And I'll be able to see your fun projects there too, and I am so looking forward to see all the Otises that we get to see crocheted. So have fun with all the various colors that you can choose from, and there's no rule that says you only have to pick 2 colors. If you want to make your Otis have a rainbow of colors, or make your spots different colors, I had a tester that did that and it came out fantastic. You can do that. So I really can't wait to see what you have to do. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again when we're ready to start part 2 of the Crochet-A-Long.